Today I'm going to be kicking off my end of year video series by telling you about the most underrated books I read this year, sharing some of my favorite hidden gems. I did this video the past 2 years and I really enjoy doing it because it just gives me a chance to talk about some books that I rarely talk about throughout the year, that I rarely hear other people talk about. These are books that have a lower amount of ratings on Goodreads and they're just not the same popular books you hear about all the time. So while the Goodreads Choice Awards comes out and we're talking about all the most popular books of the year, I like to take some time to also celebrate some of these hidden gems that I found throughout the year, and hopefully you'll find some that you want to pick up as well. I decided to try out a new location mostly because I really enjoy my Christmas lights back here. There is also a mirror behind me, so that might be a little weird, but this is what this corner looks like, so trying this new spot out for some filming. Additionally, it's a snow day, so the kids are home and they are out in the street playing. Not my kids, the neighborhood kids. I don't have kids, just a dog and a cat who demand a lot of my attention. But if you hear some shouting, they're having the best time, don't worry. That's what that is in the background. I was taking a look back at these videos I did in 2023 and 2024, and I'll have those linked down below if you want to check them out. Some of those books are still super hidden gems that I just never really see people talk about, so if you want an even bigger list, you can check those videos out for even more from the past. But I noticed that usually they're mostly mystery, thriller, and horror books, which makes sense because those are the main genres that I read. But in 2025, my reading was more diverse. Mystery, thriller, and horror did still make up the majority of my reading collectively. However, I was reading more of other genres than I usually do, including romance and fantasy and just general fiction. And so I had a list that was pretty mixed for this, but I figured you're probably mostly coming here for mystery, thriller, horror. So I'm going to start with those and I'll group those together and then I'll highlight the other books at the end. Generally, I go from books with the most amount of ratings down to the fewest amount of ratings so that we get closer and closer to the hidden gems. So I'll group the mystery, thriller, horror first, and then we'll talk about all the other books. First up is The Ex-Girlfriend Murder Club by Gloria Chow, which comes in at just over 10,000 ratings. This is a cozy mystery that is definitely for fans of John Tucker Must Die. And I was a huge fan of John Tucker Must Die growing up. I have seen that movie a million times, and this is kind of a reimagination of John Tucker Must Die. Your main character in the story is a woman named Catherine Hu, and she has been dating this guy named Tucker, but she finds out that he has been cheating on her, and so she decides to round up the other women that he's been cheating with, and they are going to have this revenge plot against him. They're going to make him pay for it. But before they can even fully have the satisfying moment of seeing him be punished for this, they find him dead. And then they all look like they are guilty of it. Throughout the story, they team up to try to find out who the real killer is and to clear their names, and it is just such a fun romp. I love just a silly, goofy mystery every now and then, and this one definitely fit the mark. This book's also kicking off a series that is called the Who Done It series, which I just think is so fun because that's the character's last name as well. It's a fun little play on words. And I'm very interested to see where the author is going to take the series from this book, so I'll be looking out for that whenever it comes out. Next up is Serial Killer Support Group by Saratoga Schaefer, which has just over 6,000 ratings. This story begins when your main character, Syra's younger sister, is murdered. And Syra doesn't think the cops are doing enough to investigate the murder, and she doesn't have faith in them being actually able to close the case and get justice for her sister's death. So she decides to take matters into her own hands, and she finds out through a friend that there is this serial killer support group in town, allegedly, where all these supposed serial killers come together and support one another. So she decides there's a pretty good chance that her sister's killer would be in that group, and she takes it upon herself to infiltrate the group, pose as a serial killer, and try to get to the bottom of who killed her sister. That premise immediately hooked me into Syra's story, and just seeing how she was going to get away with this, what kind of dangerous situations would she put herself in, and was it actually going to pay off for her in the end? Would she really find her sister's killer by doing this? It is not a path most people would take if their sister was murdered, and I admired her courageousness and ingenuity. I also just think it made for a pretty fresh concept for a thriller, finding this character going through a very unique circumstance to try to get to the bottom of something bad that happened to her. It's not a story you read every day. Next up is Detective Aunty by Uzma Jalaluddin, which comes in just under 5,000 ratings. This is the start of a cozy mystery series where you're following Aunty Khan, who is returning back to her her small town that she moved away from many years ago because her 30-year-old daughter is now being accused of murder, and she decides to come into town and jump on the case. Her daughter Sana owns a clothing store, and her landlord, who she does not have a good relationship with, is found dead in her store, and so Sana looks guilty and is immediately arrested for supposedly killing him. Causer is a 57-year-old woman who's lived a lot of life. She has a lot of trauma, and she has a lot of reasons that she's been staying away from this small town, but she loves nothing more than her family, and so she comes back to this small town, starts getting to know people, starts asking a lot of questions, and starts piecing together what was really going on in this small town. If you love a cozy mystery with a small town setting, lots of secrets, and charming, realistic characters, I think you're really gonna have a good time with this one. It's also kicking off a series, so I'll be interested to see where the author takes this series from here as well. Next up is The Third Rule of Time Travel by Philip Fracassi, which has about 4,500 ratings. This book is a blend of sci-fi, horror, and thriller genres, but don't let the sci-fi intimidate you if you're someone who is intimidated by time travel, because it is a more light sci-fi story. The 3 rules of time travel in this universe is that you get to travel back to one point in your life that you've already lived. You only get to be there for 90 seconds, and you only get to observe. You cannot change the events. Your main character in this story is a woman named Beth, and she was actually the co-creator of this time travel development with her husband. But when you start the story with Beth, her husband has just died in a car accident, and she is left raising their daughter alone. After some pressure from the CEO of her company wanting her to prove the value of her technology, she ends up using the time travel more, and then realizes that for some reason the events of her present day are being altered by her trips to the past, even though that doesn't fall within the rules of time travel and that should not be happening. This story really blends a lot of concepts that I love. I love light sci-fi stories. I love time travel. I really enjoy stories about grief, how people work through their grief, and what they get pushed to do in their haze of grief. The choices you make with your life, it's all packaged in there, and I think Philip Fracassi is just such a talented author. He writes a lot of different types of books. There's usually some horror tinged into everything he does, but I think he's just super talented. He makes any story come to life, and if any of these concepts sound interesting to you, I definitely recommend picking it up. Next up, familiar name here, is The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi with just over 3,000 ratings. This is basically if the Thursday Murder Club was actually a slasher. This is set at a retirement community following a group of older adults who work together when people in their community start dying mysteriously more rapidly than they should be at a retirement community. And it seems like there is a serial killer afoot, and these friends work together to try to figure out who's doing it and put a stop to it before their life is over next. Your main character in the story is a woman named Rose, who is such a fun character to follow. Rose is in her late 70s. She is looking to just live out the rest of her life happily in this retirement community, and she is not having it when someone is coming around causing chaos and taking lives. Rose is the one who gets the group together and is pushing the investigation forward and will do anything to get to the bottom of what's going on. While this book is a slasher with a lot of gore, it also has a lot of heart, which is a really fun balance. It has a lot of things I enjoy in books. Philip Fracassi is now an author who is definitely going to continue to stay on my radar. I can't wait to see what he does next. Next up is What Hunger by Catherine Dang with 2,700 ratings. I think the first sentence in the blurb for this book summarizes it super well, so I won't try to beat it. I'll just read for you what it says. A haunting coming-of-age tale following the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants, Ronnie Nguyen, as she grapples with the weight of generational trauma while navigating the violent power of teenage girlhood for fans of Jennifer's Body and Little Fires Everywhere. The story begins for Ronnie in the summer before she goes to high school, and this summer presents her with a lot of things that really change her life. At this very important moment when she is coming of age and understanding this transition from girlhood to teenagehood to womanhood. She has a tragedy happen in her family. She starts having interactions with other people. She has an interaction with a boy where he crosses the line, and this all drives Ronnie to a point of just absolute female rage and an insatiable desire for meat. When I first heard about this story, it didn't sound like something that I would particularly love, because it sounds like a lot of books that have been really popular lately about women and female rage and cannibalism, and those are just usually not my favorite types of stories, but this one stood out to me so much and I absolutely loved it. It covers so much ground relating to generational trauma and the experience of being an immigrant and the trauma you can carry around from that, and a lot of just cultural things about Vietnamese culture that come into the story. Obviously themes about coming of age and this transition from girlhood to teenagehood to womanhood, starting to see your parents as humans and understanding that they are also flawed, grief, mother-daughter relationships. It is just jam-packed with all these things that work together so well and tell this really visceral, compelling story. So if you're someone who also maybe wrote this book off because you thought, oh, it kind of sounds like maybe some other things, I definitely recommend giving it a chance because it really impressed me. I also thought, I don't know if that'll be for me, but the publisher sent me a copy, so I decided to give it a try, and it ended up being one of my absolute favorite books of the year. And finally in this category, we have the Marigold Cottages Murder Collective by Joe Nichols with just over 2,200 ratings. This is so funny that this ended up being the book with the fewest amount of ratings, and this is one of my favorite mystery books of the entire year. I thought this book was so excellent. Clearly I've been enjoying cozy mysteries all throughout the year given the multiple appearances on this list of cozy mysteries, but this one in particular is definitely one of my standouts of the year, and I definitely think more people should be reading it. If you like really charming cozy mysteries with a cast of unlikely friendships, think Only Murders in the Building, think The Thursday Murder Club, that is what you're gonna get here. The story is set in this community in Southern California, and the landlady for this community is named Mrs. B, and she is just such a unique character. She will only rent to people that she really cares about and believes are good people, and she is so deeply connected to her tenants and wanting to look out for them and being really engaged in their lives. And everyone in this community is their own distinct character. It's a really eclectic group of people. Things get shaken up for them when a new person moves into their community named Anthony, who is known as this potentially violent ex-con. Very shortly after he moves in, a dead body is found in the community, and he is the first one to be blamed. But Mrs. B, who likes to look out for her residents and who knows she only rents to people she feels good about, does not want to see Anthony go down for this crime. She does not believe that he did it, and so she turns herself in and says that she committed the crime. This drives the people of the community to all come together to help clear Mrs. B's name because they are fairly certain that she did not actually commit the crime, and they work together to figure out who really did so that they can get her out of jail. I absolutely adored this book. I love the characters. I love the way the story came together. I love the writing. I love the setting. I cannot wait to see the series progression of this and to read more from this author in the future. It felt like the perfect blend of so many of my favorite things in mysteries. So that's a wrap on all the mystery, thriller, and horror books that I had to mention. I will briefly show you the books in other genres that I also consider some of my hidden gems of the year. Each of these books I enjoyed and gave a 3-star or above, and they all have a relatively small amount of average ratings on Goodreads. So if any of them spark your interest, definitely pick them up and give them some more love. We have When the Tides Held the Moon by Vanessa Vida Kelly, which is a queer historical fantasy romance story set in the early 1900s in Coney Island following a blacksmith who falls in love with a merman. Flirting Lessons by Jasmine Guillory, which is a sapphic romance between a woman who is new to dating women and a very established woman who dates women who is giving her flirting lessons, and then of course they end up falling in love. Sister Snake by Amanda Lee Coe, which is a fantasy story about two sisters who once were snakes and then they turn into humans who are very different types of humans who have a lot of sisterly conflict. It's a story about chosen family, queerness, passing, and the struggle against conformity. We Met Like This, which is Casey West's adult debut romance novel. It's a second chance romance following a hopeless romantic who works in the publishing industry. And Cover Story by Celia Lasky, which is a queer romance story about closeting in Hollywood, where a publicist falls in love with a Hollywood star. So that's it for my list of hidden gems. Let me know down in the comments below if you plan on picking any of these books up. I definitely think all of them deserve some more love. And let me know what were your favorite hidden gems that you found this year as well. Like I said, this is just the start of my end of year videos, which are some of my favorite videos to do. I look forward to this moment all year when I get to wrap up my year, reflect on my reading, and talk about my favorite books. I go through videos where I tier rank books based on different genres. I talk about my favorite books. I figure out my #1 book of the year in a book bracket challenge. There's a lot to come. So to make sure you don't miss anything, make sure you subscribe and you can click the bell to be notified when I post. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.